good afternoon, everybody. And just as you're all starting to join the meeting, I'm just going to ramble on for a minute or two, as I've been doing all day. And I'm very pleased to announce that our final speaker for today is Todd Davey, who actually I thought was in Paris at the moment, but in the spirit of the world that we now live in, he's actually in the south of Spain. So it's really great to have him here. And as I say, we're just waiting for a few folk to join and before he actually starts his talk, because we don't want you to miss what he's going to say, because it's a really great, he'll be a really great thought-provoking speaker. So whilst everybody's joining, we're just going to keep chatting away here at the moment. And
how is the weather in Scotland at the moment?
Yeah, well, actually, across Scotland, we're having pretty decent weather at the moment for Scotland, it has to be said. Today in Glasgow, it's been absolutely glorious, beautiful blue skies. It's clouding over a little bit, but very autumnal. You can see the colours just starting to change, so a definite change. So certainly no surfing for us. But how are things in Spain, and how are things going in Spain generally?
In general, the word is COVID. And we have something around 10,000 new cases per day. So at the moment, that's the situation. But nevertheless, in the south of Spain, we have fantastic weather. Unfortunately, I didn't go surfing this morning. That's making me very jealous hearing that. But yeah, nevertheless, we have fantastic weather. You don't want to know the temperature here, I'm pretty sure. But, yeah, fantastic weather.
well, I mean, us people that choose to live in Scotland, I probably don't, I don't do very well in hot weather anyway. I much prefer this time of year. I'd rather be able to put on a sweater or a jacket and just get out there and enjoy the day.
And a wee whiskey is much better in cold weather. So.
Well, that's very true. That's very true. We have been drinking cocktails in the sunshine earlier in the year, but yeah, no, it's definitely turning into whiskey season too. So I think that will be the case. So I think as people are still joining, but I think we should probably kick off whenever you're ready. I will just disappear, and I will leave you just to talk, basically. So lovely to see you, Todd. I'm really looking forward to hearing your talk. So I'll see you at the other side. Bye-bye.
Thanks so much, Fiona. Thank you very much for the invitation. I'm deeply honoured to be invited to present today. And the topic that I'll be presenting on relates to the future, but the Entrepreneurial University. And very much our experience is that the future is the Entrepreneurial University. As a quick background, yes, I might be in the south of Spain, but in fact, I'm associated and work at a university or a business school in Paris, as Fiona alluded to, and it's called Institut Mines-Télécom Business School. And my position there is Associate Professor of Entrepreneurship, and I'm also head of an institute that's emerging on the future of universities. But without any further ado, you didn't come here to listen all about my past or such things, but what you did come to hear was a little bit about the future of university. And this was a very innocuous activity that I undertook. Nevertheless, it is illuminating. When you type into, for example, a Google search engine or a search engine of your choice, university it's quite illuminating what comes up. And I think, and I'm going to give you a moment to think about what might come up. Don't Google it. Think about what you think might come up. Now, in a live session, it's much easier because I can actually ask the audience, what do you think might come up? But I'm going to pretend that you're saying these words to me, such as the university is a bastion of education. University is inspiring, thought-provoking. University is a place where I get drunk. Maybe you're thinking all of those things. But I guess the inspiration for what I'm going to present to you now was I've been an educator now for 13 years. And one of the things that I was really observant of as an educator, but also a student before that, was that the university really at times felt it was out of step with the rest of society. And so even 5 years ago when we started this initiative, it's called the Future Universities Initiative, I really felt that there was something missing in the university environment which inspired us to want to do this. So without further ado, let's show you what the typical responses are from Google. And again, it's not scientific, but it does give a bit of an indication as to, well, it does give an indication as to what people are actually searching for. And when you look at this list, it's perhaps a little bit more, for educators especially, perhaps a little bit more depressing than we thought. Because when you see some of these expressions where you see that, in fact, the thoughts about a university and what students and people are expressing or trying to understand about a university are in some ways quite negative. Now, as a student, maybe you recognise some of these and you think, that's what I was thinking. But nevertheless, for us as educators, that was quite a shock to experience just this, but also we were experiencing it in our classes. And I guess that led to the initiative. And you can see the original team that we had for the first Future Universities Thought Book. And what we did was we collected 40 contributions from leaders from not only the government, but also from industry, from education, entrepreneurs, futurists, as well as from students. And we put together the first book. Now that was, we called that a global edition, and you can get it at this address. But we've subsequently launched a number of other versions, such as the Australian version, the North American version, and we are currently in the process of undertaking a version which is Universities in the Time of Crisis. I guess what those thought books have enabled us to do is to gather together somewhere in the vicinity of 120 contributions from these different leaders, from these different aspects of society, and what they think about the future of the university. What is the perspective? Where is the university going to go? Now, we had some quite depressing sentiments, some that thought it would be the death of the university going forward, and others were much more optimistic. Now, if you do any research on studying future, you'll understand that there's different scenarios that could come out of it with different likelihoods. But what I wanted to do today was to present to you a summary of our analysis of those contributions. And what we determined from those contributions was that there are effectively, for the Future University, there are effectively 5 future roles. Now, keep in mind that some of the contributions came from, for example, we had the Finnish education minister, the former education minister of Italy. We've had the current education minister of Austria and Slovenia, as well as some leaders, some really high power leaders from industry who are responsible for either university industry collaboration or for recruitment and education and training. So that gives you a background as to the contributions. But what I wanted to do is quickly introduce to you the 5 different roles that we identified. The first, and I'll go into more detail, but the first is the talent engine. The second, the life partner. The third is a discovery role. The fourth is the home base. And the fifth is one that we've called the launch pad. Now I'm going to go through each of them in detail. And again, these are summaries of what the contributors saw as the likely future for the university and the importance that they saw in these 5 roles in the university succeeding in these roles. Okay, I'm going to ask with a question. And again, it's going to feel a bit rhetorical because I'm not necessarily going to get any response, maybe in the chat if you feel like it. Can you imagine a university with no exams, no lectures, no lecturers, and no timetables? Well, I'm sure some of you can, and maybe some of you are rejoicing at this moment. But in fact, what we saw really clearly from the contributors is that in many respects, exams, lectures, lecturers and timetables are going to be an outdated mode of education going forward, and there are much better pedagogies, different ways of teaching, different curriculum that can be established that more functionally develop the skills and the attributes that we need for our future careers. And so the talent engine role is very much around to prepare people for lifelong employment, whether that's as an employee or to self-employ. And there are many aspects in the contributions. One was a very, very strong involvement of employers through curriculum development, delivery, as well as internships, time in own company, for example. Second aspect that we saw that was very well connected with this talent engine role was this thing called a capstone project, or a project that is the main part of the program that you're running, and that lectures or coaching and masterclasses fit around that project. So instead of courses being central to the program, in fact, the courses have moved away, and in the middle is a project, and around the project you have organised sessions to facilitate people through that project. There's also a notion of increasing or you better utilising these learning styles. So not only standing up at the front of a class and delivering, so to speak, but in many respects looking at ways in which we can encourage self-learning, learning through peers, how can we encourage mentored learning, and actually encourage student-mentor relationships, applied learning, which very much is about concurrently running a practical exercise together with a so-called academic exercise or academic teaching, and then blended learning, which relates to online, offline. And as a fourth aspect, there was an overwhelming response that transversal skills. In the past, we've seen a very high focus of degrees on hard skills, so technical skills. And what we're going to see going forward is a much greater focus on transversal skills, such as understanding and working with technology, entrepreneurial skills, as well as other soft skills. So overwhelmingly, what they stated, the contributions, was a shift away from this notion of education, of university providing education. Instead, the role of the university is to validate your skill development, the student's skill development. Courses are making way for learning programs where the learning function is in the middle. Closed educational offering, closed meaning the university delivers the entire degree, to an open educational model whereby the university invites other stakeholders to also participate in the teaching and educational aspect. Lecturers making way for facilitators as well as mentors. The learning that's currently done mostly alone, you'll move to a model whereby learning is done more in teams and with mentors. I mentioned earlier technical skills making way for a more combined hard and soft skill development. And then a blurring of the lines between the university and the outside world. So instead of university and employment, we're going to see something different, which I'll elaborate on. Now, I just wanted to make that more concrete. Now, this program doesn't exist, even though I've named ETH Zurich as the university where this resides, but it's just to give you an example. And this is in an open educational model, the Master of Water Security. And you register at ETH Zurich, and then you have a group of knowledge providers. So they're actually providing the information that might be used within the program. And that could include the university itself, but it could also include other universities globally, as well as organisations, scientific organisations such as Fraunhofer. You might also see in this mix water industry employers. So they are involved also in the program. So they're involved in perhaps providing projects as well as mentoring. You might see content providers, So universities moving away from providing content, and the content is available freely and openly online through locations such as Coursera, LinkedIn, Harvard Business Review, and then technology providers. So specific technology providers who supply the water industry, and they're bringing their technologies into the program. And then you have a capstone project, and the capstone project is managed by an organisation such as the university itself, but it could also be an organisation such as Deloitte, or an organisation out of Denmark, which I'll explain later, which is called Chaos Pilot. And really the role of the university here is to bring all these different elements together into a learning program for students. And they might take a role in each of these, so they might take a part in each of these roles, but at the same time, they are the ones responsible for validating the learning experiences and the skills, attributes and behaviours that are developed. Okay. You perhaps have seen this model before. It's from the World Economic Forum, but it talks about these 21st century skills, and very much historically universities have taught the foundational literacies, but much more we're going to be moving into developing competencies as well as character qualities. And I think this is something that this sort of a program will provide too. Now, maybe you think at the moment, well, that's a bit radical, and I'm not sure I can imagine that fully. Well, let's look at a program that already does it. And it comes out of Clemson University, and it's in the International Centre for Automotive Research. And it is a specific program, a 2-year program, and it's called Deep Orange. And it basically puts the student in the position whereby, or student teams, in the position whereby they have to, in the space of that 2 years, develop a car prototype, a fully functioning car prototype. Now, wouldn't that be cool to be able to do something like that? Well, that is part of their program. That is the major part of their program. All of their knowledge acquisition or coursework, if you like, or educational modules are structured very firmly around this process and supporting the student along the way. But so too are mentors coming from both industry and academia, supporting the students' understanding of the material and the knowledge that they're acquiring, and bringing it into practice to develop this car prototype. And you can see one of the car prototypes on the bottom left-hand side, and you can see who is involved from a company perspective. In this case, it's Toyota. There are many other models which I won't refer to now, but if you're looking for more information, 42 out of Paris, France, as well as Code, are also doing some quite innovative things in terms of education and using this same sort of concept of using a project capstone. But let's move on to the second role, and maybe I'll pose a second question to you. Can you imagine never leaving the university? It's a shocking question. Sorry to put that question onto you at the end of the day, but maybe I'll elaborate. Or can you imagine working side by side with experienced professionals on campus? Well, that is what the second role alludes to. And very much the contributors saw the university as having a life partner role. So in other words, you as a student, you never leave the university environment because you're always coming back to facilitate greater learning, to get new knowledge, to add to your existing knowledge, maybe to reskill or pivot and go in a different direction. What it rests upon is the concept that we are going to see students as a greater diversity in what we call students. And we're going to introduce this concept of students cubed and this new understanding of students. And it very much relates to what we know today, which is, yes, there are students who are coming into the university environment after secondary school, but before they go into a work environment. But increasingly, we're going to see students or professionals coming from a work environment, so during work. So those who are wanting to, at the same time as do their first university study, but also work and combine the two. But also those who are further advanced in their career, who might want to add a master or maybe even a PhD level, or maybe they want to add things called micro-credentials or alternative credentials to their CV, and not just to their CV, as much as anything to their knowledge set. So we potentially see also a diversification of the type of programs that are offered, whether it's we see a DBA, but maybe we'll see an entrepreneurial PhD or a societal PhD. In fact, I've just offered one on LinkedIn, so if you're interested in that, please contact me. But it also might be an opportunity for these students or professionals to upskill, reskill, change careers, directions, maybe start their own company, be a pivot to starting their own company. And then there's also this notion of so-called after work or silver surfers and maybe more around social entrepreneurship program. So in this way, the contributors saw that there were potentially the death of alumni because you never leave the university environment. So one of the aspects of this role is that we were going to see increasing diversification in the way that programs are offered, in terms of how the program is offered, when it's offered, what sort of modules you get exposure to. Maybe you'll be able to take different modules from different programs from different universities and pack it together in such a way that you can create your own customised degree. Now that's where we're moving to. There's still a number of steps to go in getting us there. But I thought there are a couple of examples that are really standing out. And I thought the first one is the New School, which is in New York City, and 300 students, but primarily the ages of 50 to 90. And they all have professional backgrounds, so depending on their background, they might also be involved in specific programs as well as specific projects. They have an annual membership fee, so instead of having course fees, they actually have a membership fee, and that entitles them to have a certain amount of study group interaction, as well as coursework, as well as activities and special events. Another example is the WOW Room, and it really is a WOW offering from IE Business School in Madrid. And what they're offering is a full-bodied experience almost, whereby the educator can be accessing students from across the globe and can be, at the same time, they have a artificial intelligence and simulations on real time, and they're monitoring the attention of the different participants to see if they're enthusiastic or they're involved, and monitoring the progress of the session. It also includes interactive robots and holograms. So that's part of what we're going to see in the future, and I think this is a massive step in that direction. Maybe I'm asking some questions that some educators don't want me to ask, but can you imagine science being fun? And maybe smart cities of the future, sorry, it says begin underpinning, but I mean being underpinned by research. Well, that's what the contributors were saying was the second role, and it's very much around the notion of discovery. So cutting edge, visionary and collaborative research. In this, the contributors were really strong in saying they still believe there's untapped potential within a university to contribute through their scientific discoveries, and that universities could be much more involved in not just the creation of new knowledge, but also the exchange and development of this knowledge. And secondly, can be much more involved in knowledge networks and facilitating, coordinating and managing these knowledge networks. And the knowledge networks I'm talking about could be regional, so it could be with government, local business, could be local entrepreneurs, social actors, but it also could be an international knowledge network. So let's explore research. One thing that was really clear to the contributors was that visionary, blue sky, really innovative research needs to remain. That's an essential part of the university environment. But moving away from, well, maybe moving towards much more connected problem-solving research, and actually having the research being done in collaboration with those users who are wanting to know the results of that research, and working together with them to create and execute the research. It also involved a number of different concepts, such as interdisciplinary institutes, collaborative centres, shared work locations, equipment, providing access to future talent entrepreneurs, all those sort of different aspects that might also come with the discovery role, but bringing these stakeholders together so that universities are not separated in their research from the external environment. But there are a couple of really cool examples that I wanted to give you, and one's not a university, I understand that, coming out of Sweden, but a research institute, and they wanted a really effective way of showing off their research. So they created firstly this building called Nest. It's a way of showing off building research, and basically what they've done is they've brought all their research into the building so that you can actually touch, feel, see, experience, test their research in action. So they can bring people from outside, they have lectures in there, they have events, they bring companies into that environment. But the second thing, they didn't think that was enough, so they created another environment, and they've created this self-contained unit which brings together all their research so that you have a completely self-contained living module that is that basically creates its own energy, but also resolves its own waste issues. So I think they've done a very good job of bringing research into reality. I think another great example that is still in development is in Malaga. And this graphic gives you a really good understanding of what they're trying to create. And they're trying to create an eco-campus. They really want to bring the physical space into our educational environments so that students cubed are actually sitting in the environment in which they might have to execute their research and their knowledge development in a practical setting. So it's very much combining physical and digital. It's bringing together research and educational tools, and it's creating a situation in which research from the university is being tested, but at the same time it's being lived in by so-called students cubed. So I think this is a really good example of that. So here's another picture of what they're planning to do. Fourth question, 2 more to go. So can you imagine your campus as a living room? And maybe where, as a further advance, because many of you probably already use the campus as a living room, but where societal problems are actually solved. Can you imagine that? Or where the campus acts as a platform for activity within the society? Well, that's very much what the home base role is about. An open co-working space for the region. Very much the university is acting as a home base or a lounge room. So it has very much a place-based perspective. And that the university is bringing together a set of regional actors, if you like. So business, students, academics, government, entrepreneurs are all coming together in this one location and using it as their home base. Now, a university is very prominent, it's generally speaking, its regional environment. It employs a lot of people and involves a lot of having students on campus, etc. So it really does have a considerable footprint in the region. And these contributors were basically expanding on that and saying, okay, how can we better use that? And what we see is a number of things. Regional roles, for example, helping to facilitate notions of smart specialisation. So in other words, and a great example is Karlstad University in the paper province in Sweden, where they've developed this competency for the region around paper. This, if we call it telescope role that the university has of looking deep into the future to see what might be coming in 5, 10, 20 years. University is supporting problem solving with SMEs, local businesses, as well as providing a base for entrepreneurial hubs. And there's many examples that I could give you around that, as well as providing these solutions for the community. A great example that I wanted to point to was a university that was originally created in 2006, but they've ramped it up. It wasn't enough to just create a international university involving a Chinese and a UK university. They decided to then bring it into a more physical space. And so what they've decided to do in 2020 is launch a mall, very much like a shopping mall. And in many ways it acts as a shopping centre for services. So it is a university, but very much you have a shop front for the different services you need within the university. But also you have startups, you have local companies who are also present, who are creating this their own shop front. And it's a way of bringing the different actors together. So for example, the universities, students, entrepreneurs and business, but bringing it together in such a way is that there's an open door, so that somewhere you've got a place to go into. So instead of, if you want to get an internship at a technology company, instead of making an application online with 2,000 others, you actually walk into the shop and you interact with somebody, and you get to access their systems by this shop front, if you like. So it's one of the many aspects that they brought into this really innovative environment. And I think, other things they've done, they have a high focus on AI and robotics, as well as all students having to take entrepreneurship classes. They also mix the roles of students, and those with experience become mentors, etc. So it's quite a cool model. Which brings us on to the fifth and last role. And I have one remaining question for you, which is, can you imagine your university as a place where new ventures are launched? And you might say, no, that already exists. We already can launch a venture on campus. We have an incubator. But what we're going to see, and what the contributors were really emphasising, is that the university needs to see its role in this space as a much more positive role that they can play, very much in the notion of a launch pad. So that's not only launch pad for students, but it's also a launch pad for academics, as well as local entrepreneurs and local businesses who want to scale up. So seeing the role of the university as a major source of not just new knowledge, but also research and technology. So it's connected with the discovery role, but then providing a really safe environment in which those concepts can be trialed, tested, but then launched and brought into reality, and then scaled up with support. So one of the examples that I wanted to give to you is one that comes out of Germany. It's called Unternehmertum. And what you see, it's maybe a little bit hard for you to see, but this is something that's actually on the wall at Unternehmertum. It's a centre that exists just outside of the Technical University of Munich. It's owned by the Technical University of Munich, but it's a separate company. And it sits on the outside of the university and acts as an intermediary between the university environment and the external environment. And that's what you can see in this diagram. Unternehmertum in the middle, TU Munich on one side, and startups, enterprises, venture capitalists on the other. And then they have a specific role of developing entrepreneurial talent, developing entrepreneurial companies, scaling up, and supporting new ventures, whether they're coming from academia or from students or from the local business. So I'm very much in this way acting as a conduit, but very much also a launch pad for new ventures. Just a second quick example I wanted to give you is an organisation out of Denmark, which is called Chaos Pilot. I mentioned them earlier, but they've actually created a co-working community whereby students, local companies, business, they're actually all in the same building, and they're operating in a collaborative environment, and they have programs which draw the students out of the university and industry into the university, but into collaborative projects. And there's many more aspects to what they're doing, but I think just to give you an oversight of the fact that, yeah, some of these things we're talking about are going to happen into the future, but then some of them are also already here. So just to recap, the first role I discussed was the talent engine. We had the life partner role, the discovery role of the university acting as a home base, as well as the university acting as a launch pad. One last thing I wanted to do was just maybe provide a point of inspiration. And I think this quote captures my thoughts quite accurately. I really want to emphasize to especially the students in this session, don't waste your time at university, because as much as we're talking about the future university in this presentation, we're also talking about some of the things that actually already exist, but maybe are unknown to you within the university. I'm talking about the ability to have internships, foreign exchanges, maybe that's a bit difficult at the moment, unique scholarships, so there's some really specific scholarships on offer. Learning journeys, access to technology, startup companies, access to important networks. What you do with your time at university is far more important than which university you go to or what you study. You would never get a better platform or opportunity for success than you have right now. And if some of the opportunities that you've heard in this presentation are not currently offered to you, initiate change within your institution to make sure you get those opportunities. But expect some resistance. I guess that's one final comment for university management and educators who might be listening. But the trouble is, if you don't risk anything, you risk even more. If you're looking for more information about the initiative or about what we're doing currently, you can go to www.futureuniversities.com. You'll find more information, or please feel free to contact me on the email address below. But thank you very much for your attention. Not an easy situation to be looking at a screen for so long during the day. But great initiative. I want to congratulate Fiona and her team, as well as the university generally, for creating such a great initiative and getting so many people involved. I think it's a fantastic initiative to take forward. So again, thanks. And if there's any questions, I'm more than happy to answer if I can.
Yeah, thank you very much, Todd. I mean, you did a fantastic job of pulling together a lot of the threads of the conversations that have been happening today. And there are a couple of questions. Interestingly, Pauline is asking about the life partner role. How hard is that to sustain? It's interesting because earlier on in the panel, we were talking about how you hang on to your alumni, and actually you're saying you don't ever let them go. So yeah, how would you sustain that?
Yeah, I mean, it is very difficult to sustain that, and it requires substantial, I won't say necessarily changes within the university environment, but a change in mindset to be willing and open to embrace that life partner role, because we need to see our alumni as customers, potential future customers. But not only that, it's not about the money as much as the role that they can play and the increasing likelihood that they're going to want to, during their professional life, come back and receive quality in insights or education, might be micro-credentials or alternative credentials. And I think when I say the change of mindset, what I really am alluding to is that the university management and educators, we need to get away from the notion that the university does it all. In that first example that I gave, the university was the overseer, the coordinator of the entire program, but didn't necessarily deliver all of it. And I think that's where I believe that a change of mindset needs to occur within the university environment and the educator role, to see that we can sustain the life partner role, but it's going to take some changes, and to see professionals as equals. And I think to invite them into the program in different ways, whether it's as mentors or project participants, and to create educational programs that are engaging for them. And I think that takes a change of mindset, not necessarily a major change within the university.
Thank you. And just one final question, I think, that you can see how this innovation can be achieved in new courses or institutions. What advice would you give to those that want to innovate in existing courses? And that's a fantastic question, because that's like, what can we do right now, I think? No, I think it's a really relevant question. And there's two parts to my answer, I guess. One is to be innovative and hack what you can do right now. So in other words, how can I, within the restrictions that are imposed on me, whether it's through the course structure that is mandatory, or through accreditation structures, which can be at times restricting, how can I bring some of these elements that we've talked about in, even if it's just a small way? So how can I get industry
or employers more than just industry, how can we get them actually involved in what we're doing? How can I get mentors involved in the program the educational program I'm running? How can we create some sort of, maybe if it's even a project for one day or for an afternoon, or we've seen it with hackathons, for an intense period of time. How can we actually do these things? Some of them might need to be outside of the curricula. Some can be within the curricula, but some can be also connected. The second part of my answer is I think COVID has given us a jolt of what is possible. And I think, Fiona, and you and I were talking prior to this starting, and what we've both commented on is the fact that some things have changed already in a university that we never thought would change. I work in a French business school, university environment, which is highly bureaucratic, and things that were not possible 6 months ago are now possible. And so what I would say is that I think you can use the current situation, and there's an expression which is never let chaos go to waste. Never let a pandemic go to waste. And there's a lot of negatives associated with it, but I think it's also an opportunity for us to pivot and maybe try some things that potentially in the past we couldn't.
Thank you. And just as I think that the questions are done, we've got more. And I think this again is very interesting. Your talk assumed a society with work. Have you done any thinking on how this model works in an abundance-based society, post the need for employment?
Post the need for employment?
Yeah.
I'm struggling to envision the post need. That seems fantastic. My first initial impression is I don't think humans could function unless they had something that occupied their time and enabled them to dedicate their time to. I think as a species we would be lost. So whether it's employment or other activities, whatever it is. So I'm not sure we'll ever move past this need to do things and be active. But in terms of employment and future issues around employment, whether it's digitalisation or robotics, AI replacing jobs, I think what we've seen over the history of new technology is that technology have at times come in and replaced jobs, but as much as anything, they've also created jobs. I think we need to restructure some of our programs around the technology so that we can work effectively with technology, so that we can do some of the things that perhaps we will always have a competitive advantage over technology to do. But maybe a subsequent answer that I can offer is that if we see an environment in which there's going to be less employment, what we probably are going to be seeing is an environment where people, students cubed, are going to need to find innovative ways to employ themselves. Now, I'm assuming again that we don't move to a utopia where we all robots do everything and we get to live in a state of bliss. But what I guess I'm saying is that going forward, it is my strong belief that, and also the contributions that we had, we're really saying this overwhelmingly, entrepreneurial skills, attributes and behaviours are really important to develop so that the students of today can not just find employment, but can create their own employment going forward, as well as not just individual learning, but also team learning and the notion that teams and projects are going to be a distinct part of our future going forward. And we need to get better at working in these teams as well. So.
That's great. That was a very good point to end on then, I think. So thank you very much, Todd. That was just a fantastic way to end the day. And I know that people were really enjoying it from the comments, so thank you very much. I am just going to wrap up now just with, I'm just going to share my own screen just to wrap up the conference for the day. And so thank you everybody who attended today, and really I really hope that you enjoyed it. I just want to offer a huge thanks to our guest speakers, to Jeff Scott and Todd Davey from joining us from Sydney and from the south of Spain, to Anne Davidson for 2 very engaging workshops, to our panelists, Leslie McCara, Helena Good, Jim Metcalf and Debbie Williston, and the panel chair, Richard Williams, to our judges, Andy Penaluna, Lisa Wardlaw, Ailsa Crum and Jim Metcalf, and of course a big thank you to the fabulous SIE marketing team who made all of this possible. I just want to congratulate again the students who shared the visions of a future of learning with us. You can check out their full videos on the event page and on the SIE website. And congratulations again to our Imaginative Educator Award winners. It was fabulous to see how they responded to the immediate challenge of lockdown, while also creating lasting change to benefit students in the future too. So all of the slides, all of the sessions have been recorded and they'll be made available to you. You can also see the full videos from the Future of Learning Challenge, as well as some fabulous interviews with our inspirational innovator entrepreneurs, all on the SIE website. If you attended Anne's workshop, the Padlet guest book is available on the Eventbrite event page. If you didn't attend the workshops, I think you can still access Padlet and do have a good look at it. I'm sure you'll find it very interesting. And just really to get in touch if you've got any feedback and questions. And just finally, I wanted to reiterate why we decided to run this conference and the whole Festival of Innovation. We wanted to look forward to a life beyond lockdown and the possibilities of a reboot, a new start. We also wanted to celebrate our community of educators and students. They've demonstrated amazing ingenuity and resilience, as you can have seen from our award winners and of course from many others in our community too. So let's move forward together, continue to collaborate, share what we have learned and work towards the future we want for ourselves and for others. And remember that SIE is here to support you, so do keep in touch. So this is normally when I would say, have a safe journey home, everyone, and thank you very much for spending the day with us. But today it's thank you and stay safe. Thank you very much.